Madagascar, an island situated in the Southeast Indian Ocean, is a real living natural legacy. It figures amongst the world biological diversity hotspots and possesses one of the world's richest ecosystems with a very diverse natural habitat. Unfortunately, facing the growing poverty and demographic explosion, this wealth is threatened by high-rate degradation, to a point that many species might disappear before they are even discovered. Madagascar is committed to protect its environment since the end of the 80s and has adopted an approach which has evolved from a mere notion of conservation towards a notion of sustainable development. CMP Tandavanala, a non-governmental organisation, works in the field of environmental protection. It was created in 1999 as a multi-local planning committee at the province of Fianarantsoa's eco-region level. The NGO's main mission is to provide a better management of sustainable natural resources, particularly for those of the Ambustra-Vandruzu Forest Corridor, through assisting the communities to enhance their well-being and life conditions. The Ambustra-Vandruzu Forest Corridor is a sempervirente, humid, dense tropical forest, which was recently declared a protected area in the 5th category, according to the classification given by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Through the forest corridor, we find biological connection between two national parks. In Madagascar, there is a high use of wood as energy, since 92% of energy used by households comes from the forests. In other words, wood remains for the households the main source of energy used, as well as the main fuel for cooking in rural as in urban areas. Annual consumption amounts to 10,600,000 cubic metres of firewood per year within the 22 regions of the island. Firewood is the type of wood used by 82.2% of Malagasy households, whereas charcoal is used by only 17% of those living mainly in urban areas. In CMP Tandavanala's view, swapping from firewood to other sources of energy can only be achieved in the long term for Malagasy rural households. Thus, in the short term, it is imperative to find other options aiming to reduce wood consumption. CMP Tandavanala has undertaken a project for the distribution of the Tsinjo Harena Improved cookstoves. This project enhances energy efficiency technologies and aims to reduce firewood consumption. The project carries an added value through its contribution to efficient and appropriate action facing the stakes and constraints brought on by climate change. It also expands natural resource preservation action. Using a single Tsinjo Harena Improved cookstove during a year allows a household to reduce greenhouse gas emission by up to 2.73 tonnes, to save up to 2.11 tonnes of firewood, to reduce deforestation by 0.1 hectares per year, to reduce respiratory diseases in women and children caused by a high exposure to smoke, because there will be a smoke reduction of 75%, to save more than half of the usual daily expense on wood, which will allow investment in small farming activities, to reduce hard chores due to the gathering of wood supply from the forest, which usually is a task for women and children. Using a Tsinjo Harena Improved cookstove particularly allows the improvement of the well-being of vulnerable rural households living on the outskirts of the Ambustra-Vandruzu Protected Areas forest. The project's ambition lays in producing and distributing 100,000 Tsinjo Harena cookstoves within 10 years in order to reduce the CO2 output by more than 1,241,000 tonnes. CMP Tandavanala is a member of the Fair Climate Network of Southern Africa and works in collaboration with Eco Cooperation, Fair Climate Fund and Novo Institute to develop low carbon emission technology potential within the carbon market mechanism. CMP Tandavanala organised a process of public consultation in 2014 to collect the concerns, worries and suggestions of community members, organisms and institutions working in the field of energy and environment. Interest groups at community level, the local and traditional authorities within the Vatuvāvi-Fituvanani region, and representatives from the Ministries of Environment and Energy actively took part in the process. The Tsinjo Harena Economic Cookstove was designed by handicraftsmen specialised in clay work. In order to obtain a strong and hard material, clay, sand, burned soil and kaolin were mixed up. To form the stoves they used chainwork. The final product is obtained after a few days of work, starting by mixing, modelling the material, then designing the cookstove, pre-drying it, and then comes the final firing, during which the product is placed in the oven. Finally, the cookstove will be put together with the metal exterior, and it's ready for use. In all, the Tsinjo Harena cookstove goes through all these steps in 15 days. The Tsinjo Harena prototype went through laboratory tests and beneficiary households approval test. It received certification from the National Centre for Industrial and Technologies Research. The results of these tests show a reduction of 69% of firewood consumption. This year, CMP Tandavanala started to produce 1,000 Tsinjo Harena cookstoves and has already distributed 500 at the price of 5,000 ariary each. Nolene has been using the Tsinjo Harena stove for several months and has found a huge number of advantages compared to traditional cookstoves.
Since we started using the Tsinjo Harena cookstove, we have reduced our firewood consumption. Before, we needed 10 pieces of firewood to cook the rice. Now, we only need 2 or 3 pieces to do it. That's to say, we spend less money on buying firewood. Also, we find that this Tsinjo Harena cookstove does not emit a lot of smoke compared to the stove we used before.
CMP Tandavanala plans to produce 100,000 cookstoves within 10 years in order to satisfy the needs and requests from the communities living in the outskirts of the protected area situated in the Vatuvāvi-Fituvanani region. Later, CMP Tandavanala plans to cover other regions situated within sensitive zones in order to reduce human pressure on natural resources and biodiversity. It also seeks to cover as much as possible of the arid zones, with the aim to reduce the community's financial charges for firewood purchase. CMP Tandavanala's vision is not that Tsinjo Harena will remain just a project, but to use it as a tool to reduce deforestation and greenhouse gas emission in Madagascar to achieve a fair climate benefiting humanity in its entirety.